Okay, that moment has come. Slight mess up on my part. For some reason, it's because I had them like this. I assumed the power was going to come to this side. Okay, probably this camera is probably a better one. What I thought was this was over here for some reason. Obviously, it's the way it's been laying. So I've actually cut this a little bit short. So we've had to sort of bring this up and sort of cut this away and do it like that. But basically, as you can see, we've made a resin holder, or hopefully one of the camera angles will see this. This is a nice block, and what I did was, it was intentional. I know it looks like a mess and a spill, but what I actually did was tip it down to get rid of this back and to reinforce this back plate on. So I've used a bit more resin, tipped it from here down, and then I refilled this up. But this is all completely dry, it's nice and smooth and everything else like that, and wired in. Well, you saw us do these joints anyway. You can just about catch this one on the overhead. We've got this one here, we've got the RF unit which is hidden in our little sleeve down here, okay, and we've got these all coming off. The only thing I've got to do is re-affix this as I put it together, but obviously having this open so you can see it as well is what we've really done here. So what we've got now is our first attempt at firing it all up. So, and there we go, that's it all on. Now if I just turn it down to 25% so it doesn't blind the camera, as you can see, we've got all the loops on. Probably this back camera angle is better. So as you may be able to see, we have the lights all on down here. So we've got all those lights are on, no problem at all. That power feed comes into here. Then we've got this circular one. This one down here is really to do the early pulls, and it gives us a light strip up so we can do the top area as well when we drill through it. So that's the idea of this frontal area. Also, you're going to get a little bit of light glow from this little loom down here which will stick, which will do this area where all the wiring is and everything. But it's all a soft fit, all of this. I haven't glued any of this down purely because we're going to be drilling in here. And the last thing we want to do is have this stuck down and drill into it. I know where these bars are roughly, okay? So that shouldn't be a problem, but this is the reason for not gluing this down. All the LEDs for the back engines have been put in. To be honest, they were just done with a little bit of micro crystal clear. Neat, plenty of it. Put it down, leave it overnight, it dries, it said crystal clear, so that's no problem at all. So they're in there. The other reason for using crystal clear or a PVA glue is if we have a problem and we have an LED go out, I can get this open and change them without having to drill them out or try and get them out. So don't think bit of super glue, we'll super glue them in or something other glue like that, weld them up. So this way it's like a PVA, it should peel, be able to clean up quite easily to change any lighting systems we want them to do. It looks a little bit unsightly here, but what we've got here is a good old-fashioned connector block or a chock block. Just because we have our power feed coming in into here, then we have our three systems coming off of it. So our three systems, as we know, is the upper. So we've got the bridge, all those areas completely lit up onto one feed. Second feed does this lower edge, the moon pause I'm calling it, and everything else. The third feature goes off and does the engine. And that is it. It's a lot of work and a lot of flapping around, but to be honest, if you just got on with it and you didn't have other things going on like I do, it's not too bad at all. It's pretty straightforward and you can just get in there and get on with it and get it done. Okay, so there's a couple of little tweaks I've had to make with it just for cabling and tracking and everything else to go round, but generally really happy of how this lower section is. So if we just sandwich it together now, so as you can see, cables everywhere. All right, so they come in. So the easiest way of doing this, locking the front end first, then it comes in like the back. Okay, and then hopefully camera can see. At the moment we're using a temporary system, but from the back you can see those engines on like that. We've got a little bit of light showing through the rear, but everywhere else we are light fast. Now I've had this with the lights out last night in the dark, trying to see light coming through, and we have no trouble with this upper section. If I just unplug it, because to be honest, I'll show you the reason for that in a minute. But there we go. That is our Star Destroyer done. Now this actually weighs a lot. I'm going to get scales out later to weigh this just to see how much it is when all the other bits are on, because don't forget, we're not out of the woods yet. We've still got quite a bit of work. But what we need to do is put this all together. Now, a couple of ways of doing it. Easiest way is to literally come along with super glue, tack it in place, and then track super glue down the rest of it, and away you go. Trouble with that is extremely hard, and I've got a feeling what's going to happen is that over time you might need to get in here again. And although this top one is done with PVA glue, with that wiring and everything down there, I think I'm going to need a better access to get inside it. So what I've elected to do is, I'm going to super glue the front, I'm going to super glue these two corners, and the rest of it I'm going to PVA glue. Now the great thing about using a PVA glue and liquid putties as we're going to do it is that they can track along and go in and do all the gap filling and everything else. And to be honest, we use the side camera. This one down here, as you can probably see, you're not going to see much going on down there. When it's all together, I don't think we're going to have mass areas. But what we can do then is at any point we know we just need to get a blade in the corners, okay, to get them to release, and we know that's going to be on the lower side, so I should be able to get in there, or even if I need a razor saw, same with the front, that's enough to get rid of the things which are going to snap anything else. Then hopefully you can come along with a blade and just track it down each of the lower sides, okay, which we know are nice and smooth and clean now because we've done it, and that way we can get back into the business end just here without any real problems, okay. But it is just that little fear factor that when you build your model like this and you're all done, that then you're in the situation of like, oh god, I can't get back into it, I've got a light not working, one of the LEDs is off. If we can do it so at some point, if you wanted to, for a quick repair, you could open it up, get in there, change whatever you want to, then put it back down and away you go, because hopefully you won't have to touch anything else and going in there. And if you do have, God forbid, there's any sagging, stuff like that, again, you can get in and correct it. So that is my main thing. So what I'm going to do next is double check all the wiring, leave it on for probably about 6 hours to make sure, one, nothing melts, secondly, all the joints are really good and stable and everything else like that, because again, we don't want to get this thing together, flick it on and nothing's happened. If you remember and go back at the Corsair build we did, the 1/32 trumpeter, you'll remember fibre optics, we broke a fibre optic cable inside a wing once we'd finished. I ended up having to drill a totally new one right the way through the wing and running it through. Nightmare. We don't want to have that sort of type of thing happen again, so I'm going to leave this on permanently so we can see exactly what it is. Then we can get these two sides clamped on, and then we can do the real fun stuff, because what we've got obviously the top areas up here, we've got all these little antennas, we've got the deflector shields, those big reactors that go on at the top, they've got to go on. We've still got to do all the gun systems, everything down here. We've still got to flip it over and super detail a few little areas, obviously the moon pool as I'm calling it, but that cargo bay, the belly one and the TIE fighter one at the front, they've got to be sorted out. We've got to put some sensors in on the nose section, which is tiny little detail bits that have got to go in, and add little tiny bits everywhere, because one of those areas is, we spoke about it a long time ago it seems now, but back here we've got a bit missing. I'm sure it should be a bit in the kit somewhere, but we haven't got it, so I'm going to have to scratch build some details and put those in. So there's still little bits and pieces to go on, but luckily from our point of view, it's one big lump now, so we no longer am I taking up the entire desk. As you can see, I've been using this nice new wide angle shot up here so you can get an idea of everything that's going on around here, but we have got bits of photo etch, electronics, wiring, everything. It's not looking so bad now because most of it's in, but it was literally everywhere, so we can clear all that out of the way and we'll be dealing with this little lump instead of everything else. So that's that bit done. Now, as I said, temporary using a standard 2 amp system going in at the moment. What we have here is, this is going to be our power feed going up in. So what we've got is our standard pole, which I know somebody's going to say to me, what size are you using? I don't know. All I know is it fits the area thing. That's 10mm hollow brass rod, okay. So what I've actually done is, you might be able to see, or hopefully you'll be able to see, we've got here and we've put in our system. Now you've still got the rubber down the bottom there, so it'll make a nice positive join, but it goes in, and obviously you just saw it just then, I have had it in testing, it just pushes up, completes the circuit, and we're away. This wire will go out at the bottom of the base and you won't see it, so we're just going to have 2 of these and then a smaller one slightly at the front, and that will be it. This one won't have a rubber foot obviously, but the others will have tiny little rubber feet so they don't scratch the actual Star Destroyer's paint work or anything else like that underneath and everything else. The other thing as well is I'm going to reinforce these areas where these are going to go up and in there. I'm just going to put another layer of plastic card down just to distribute the weight so it isn't poking up through in one area. Obviously we don't have to work with the power pack is because it's got a giant block of resin on top. But there we go. So all we've got to do is reconnect the plug onto the end of this one, and then once this goes down in, we'll be absolutely fine and that will be done. So that's that bit. And to be honest, all I did, tiny bit of resin, just dropped in the end, okay, and it was left overnight, so I know down this end it's got a nice block of resin which will hold this plug, so again when it goes in it doesn't get pushed down or pushed up the top and we're into a position where we've got no way of plugging this thing anymore. So there we go. Between that, and we've still got our little remote control for it, so we can do the lighting and all those areas, we are really set to push on. So what I'm going to do now is spend probably the next sort of half hour double checking everything inside it, making sure everything's okay. Going to leave it on for many hours, probably around about 6 hours until last thing tonight. Make sure it's all good and everything's working fine. If we're happy that's all good, what we can do first thing in the morning is get this sides together, bring them together. We now know it fits, which was always the problem before, was getting them to fit. To be honest, they are just a little push fit needed. There we go, that's them both in now. And we know we're good to go for actually bringing this one all together. Then we can clear everything, clear the benches and everything else. I'm going to show you about obviously super detailing the areas, going around, checking in, take care of those seams underneath, because we can just flick the lights on there to see if we were light fast or not, which was a nice little touch, and everything else. Then we can get some spray booths, which we're going to put here for a change, and we're going to spray this thing, weather it, super detail it, everything else, get it mounted on its stand and really bring it to life. Okay, so as you can see, we are now done. We are solid, put together. As I said, a couple of bits on we just spoke about before, but now we've got this bottom section in and tight and everything else like that. We're in a position now where we can really go for it. Now, to tell you the truth, I was up quite late last night working on this one, which is the best time because obviously you can turn all the lights out and see if we've got any light bleed coming through and everything else like that. But generally, looking down it, we got a tiny little bit of a warpage issue just down here at the front, but given its age and all the problems we've had, I'm gonna have to live with it. It's just this particular area here, when you look right the way down the line, you can see it's slightly a little bit not in line, if you like. Okay, there's a little bit of a twist, and when you look at this area at the top here, we can put this down somewhat. You may be able to see, all right, those bits aren't glued in. It's just a little bit tiny out of whack, just this area here, but it's not any of our joins, it's literally just where the resin has sagged. But if we take the other one off, where it falls off, that's just me testing the radar system. From the underside, it's quite nice now because we can sort of throw this around. From the underside, as you can probably see, it's looking the part. We've got a little power lead which fits in here very nicely, and if we have a quick go on it, and also the thing is, because we've got those structures inside and that now, it feels very solid. Before it was extremely fragile. This thing, you feel like you could quite frankly bung it in the car and not have to worry about it too much. Okay, but from the rear, there's our engines. Okay, you might see some little twinkly lights here and there. If I use the side cam, it's probably better. You might see this guy just up here. There's one there. The idea with putting those in is I just put little holes in to make sure, one, all the LEDs are working and everything else like that. But there's a few more around how much you can pick them out with the front camera. But there's one on each level, little tiny white holes I've put in. And we did some on the sides as well, just to make sure we could see light through here. You might be able to see you've got some dust on it. But that little light there, these are oversized little holes, if you like. They're not actually going to be this big. It was purely so I needed to see what was going on and making sure we're all okay. But generally, if you just unplug, we are done from that part of it. Now, the trouble you have is light bleed, okay? We've covered it completely, but because this big area goes along the bottom, there's still a little bit down there. So what I actually did last night, I went along and I tracked down thin PVA glue and just run it right the way, all the way around the bottom edges. And the beautiful thing is about it, you'll probably see on the close-up, you can't see it anywhere, it's all perfect, okay? So, and it's taking care of all the gaps and bits and pieces and problems we've had down there and everything else like that. Looking very much the part now and everything else. We've got a slight tiny bit of light bleed at the back, okay, which is just in this area up here. Okay, it's on this side a little bit, and this is just where this needs pushing up and gluing into place, which is something we can do very easily. But you might be able to see we've got some black areas down here. This is just where I've had a little bit of light showing through. So again, PVA glue, pop that down, let it dry, okay. Black paint over the top, check it again for light source. But doing it in the dark was great because I could literally, you look around it and you put it all different angles and you can see any light or anything else coming through down there. But there we go, that is the basics of it. It's very heavy. It is quite a weight, this thing, but as you can see, it's really turned the corner now. We can literally start to sort of push on with it and everything else like that. One little thing I was going to show you was what you can actually do if you take some black paint, like something halfway thin. So a model air is a good one because you can use it straight out of the bat. You can actually put a drop of this down and let it run all the way down. To be honest, I'm out of it now because that's what I did, but you put it down in there and it's dried now. hold it at the angle so it's not flooding into the actual model, and let it come down, and again that takes care of any little light seams you might have. Okay, and then literally get it in the dark, have a look at it and see exactly what you've got as you work your way through. So we've done both half of those. We've got small tiny little fit issues still to take care of here, there and everywhere on this one. Little things we've got to take care of is this rear port at the back, because the light is too strong coming through it, so we need to diffuse that a little bit. So what I'm going to do, PVA glue it up the window when we're totally done. I'm probably going to put a small colour into it, like a smoke or something, just to take it and mute it out. But there we go, I wanted to show it in the one piece and see that it's not falling apart. So what we can do, we're going to add now these radar ones, which basically they slip on the top, wrong side, they slip on the top just like this. We have one there and one here, and this is a great thing because this is all going together really, really well now. Okay, and that will fit on the top just like this. Okay, again, glue it up so we get no light feed, bleed or anything else like that coming through. Then we've got these lovely reactor ones which are going to go on the top. There we go, which click in just like that. Okay, and then we're going to stop. We're not going to put in the little areas on the side because there's photo etch with those and some little bits, so we don't really want to mess with those because obviously we need to dry brush and do everything else. What I'm going to do now is just glue these two top parts and the reactors in, so it's very much looking the part. Then what we're going to do is give this a complete coat of black paint everywhere to completely light fast it, because to be honest, where we've thinned out various areas to get it to fit and everything else, you can see a little bit of light bleed, and I think a good thick black coat of paint right the way over everything will do the job. And this is where my trusty, this is my eye water with the trigger one comes in, because you can literally come along, okay, and just paint it with this with no problem at all. Fill it up, blast it on. Model air I've been using, neat, just putting it down on there, a couple of coats and we're good to go. And then that way we can check for any problems we might have with it and everything else. And then what we're going to do, as you say, is get it set up over here and take care of then of the actual painting, the weathering and everything else like that. But there we go, so totally done. Big milestone for this particular kit, and now we've got all the nice easy stuff to the line. Okay, so as you can see, completely black. We've light tested it. It's had numerous coats of thick black paint, to be honest, from a rattle can, quickest way to do this one. Before we did all of that, we masked up down the back end here completely, so obviously the LEDs are all very well protected and everything else like that, because obviously the last thing we want to do is to be in a position you turn them on, you've got fogging and it affects the light and everything else. The little holes we had all around this I'm not worried about at all, that we did for the light checking, because obviously they're very small. We can take care of those. I haven't put, you see on the top here, we haven't put the reactors, if you like, on the top, purely because I think with this it'd be quite handy. We can flip this on its roof like this and we can put it down and everything else, but obviously if it's got those on there, they're going to be too fragile to do that one. As you can see on the underside, looking very much the part now. Happy with how that electronics part is in there. Obviously we just need to mask that up again, make sure we get nothing down in there. We've done a little bit of work down here, you can't really see it because it's black on black, but just to liven up a few of these little areas. There is other bits to go in there, but they're very small, very fragile, things like that. So obviously we've got some various lumps and bumps are going to go on here. These are for the tractor beams that go on. We've got the big claw obviously that hangs down the bottom here, and there's a couple of other little bits. But what I intend to do is, because it's such a big job, you can afford to just pick out an individual area perhaps to detail it a little bit more, even when it's painted, because it's going to be multiple layers. But certainly now, we tested this in the dark last night, completely being it all black to make sure there was no light showing through anywhere. Totally happy of how it is. It all works really, really well, and now obviously it's completely solid. So the next thing we can do is literally clear everything out of the way, make sure we're all clear, get our reference pictures all sorted out, because obviously you're going to need a lot of them for this one, for the different colours and everything else like that. We might do some little colour swatches just on bits of plastic card, just to get an idea of what we're going to go with. I have it in my mind what we're really going to use. Going to go with Tamiya, XF19, 53, 54, things like that, just for different shades of grey. And then obviously we're going to bleach out by lightening, darkening and all those areas. I don't think we're going to go too far on the way of weathering on this one, apart from it having a basic wash over it. But obviously we've got a lot of work to pick out, and we can bring a lot of the detail to life as well by certainly some of these panels that you can see on this one all over this. We can pick them out even a little bit more by changing the colour and giving them a little bit of shadowing work around them and everything else like that. So next up, what we're going to do is going to give this a coat of grey paint completely, dead straight, right over the top, okay? And then what we're going to do is get the spray booths all sorted out all around here. Going to get a load of Tamiya tape for obviously doing all the masking work, and we can start our way painting through absolutely everything on this one. Going to do it in a couple of ways. We're going to do the top, then we'll do the bottom, then we can do the sides, because obviously you can get round to them. We're going to make it quite comfortable for us, so I've got some polystyrene blocks this will sit on as we do in each of the areas, and angle them slightly towards me, which is offside to you, but we'll change the camera angles around to make it a little bit better and everything else. But there we go, we have one solid Starless drawer.